flow.
Welcome to episode 70 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. This is going to be a great off-season episode. We are going to talk about the NHL's Atlantic Division. Who is the best team right now heading into the season? We're also going to go over the Jonathan Huberdeau contract with the Calgary Flames and discuss the best and worst contracts in the NHL. I promise you are going to want to stay tuned until the very end. But before we get into all that, it is time to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, man?
Doing well, Anthony Bruno. I often say it sucks when it's raining cats and dogs. And in Ottawa, it is raining cats and dogs. But as I always say as well, happy to be recording a podcast, episode number 70 of the GFP Podcast. Shout out goes to, this is a different one. This is a trivia question. You're nodding like you know who it is, but I don't know. Do you know who it is?
I have no idea, Lepore.
Only one player in the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs has donned the number 70, and that is Alex Bishop. Who is Alex Bishop, you ask? Last year, early in the year, the Toronto Maple Leafs were in need of an e-bug and called the University of Toronto goalie who was studying for an exam. Quickly ran out of the library, suited up, played a backup role against the Sens, and he's in the history books. The only player in the history of the organization to don the number 70. I'm sure that that jersey's hanging in his basement proudly.
What a story, man. I remember that this past season. And as soon as you said number 70, I go, okay, it's probably a goalie. And then when you said Bishop, it was ringing a bell from last season. But what a story, man. To go from U of T to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Absolutely incredible.
Is it just me, or is the whole e-bug thing, like, as much as we love it, we laugh at it, we enjoy watching it, it's a big story when it happens. I've always thought it's kind of embarrassing. Like, I've always thought it's kind of a bad look for the league.
It is pretty stupid.
Yeah, like everyone laughs at, the Leafs lost to a Zamboni driver. I mean, under normal circumstances, that team would just light the goalie up and win. And that kind of sucks. And I can't think of another example in another sport where something like that could happen. The issue is finding a solution. Like, do you have a third string goalie hanging around? And then, at the end of the day, that should be your AHL guy. And then he's with that team. So I don't have a solution, but I've never really liked it. I know Berkey's spoken up about how embarrassing he thinks it is, and he thinks something should be done to fix it.
But you said it. There's not really like an obvious solution to it. I agree. I think it's totally embarrassing when you have a Zamboni driver, any dude off the street, a U of T goalie. Like, come on, what are we doing here? This is the National Hockey League. We've got to have a better system in place. But I don't really think there is an easy solution. But who knows? Someone much smarter than us has to come in and figure that out for the NHL.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's get straight into the content for today, Lepore.
Whoa.
So earlier this week, the Boston Bruins announced that they are officially bringing the band back together. Patrice Bergeron signing a 1-year deal for $2.5 million with an additional $2.5 million in incentives. That is just one of the best contracts in the NHL, coming off his 5th Selke trophy, coming off one of the best seasons of his career. And he's 37 years old now. It's just incredible. So he's coming back. David Krejci coming back to the Bruins from the Czech Republic, 1-year deal for $1 million, another $2 million in incentives. So they have their top 2 centermen signed for next season for $3.5 million against the cap. Absolutely insane. So the reason I bring this up, Lepore, is because I want to talk about the Atlantic Division and where the Leafs stand right now. So the Bruins, they're bringing everybody back. The Lightning coming off their 3rd straight appearance in the Stanley Cup Final. The Florida Panthers just made that huge trade with the Calgary Flames, Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau. And then you have the Leafs, who kind of, made a couple of moves on the periphery in the offseason. Nothing spectacular. Then you have the Sens on the come up, the Red Wings on the come up. Buffalo should be better next season. So Lepore, how do you view the Atlantic Division heading into this season?
Okay. So quite often in sports, people get very excited with change. A team makes a lot of moves and there's a lot of hype around this team that made a lot of moves. But then we quickly find out that movement doesn't exactly lead to success. So I don't see as much change to this division as I think some people do. Because I think teams are still a couple of years away. Like, I think the Sens are going to have a very good year, a very impressive year. But do I think they're going to make the playoffs? If I had to bet, I would say no. I could see them being like in that 500 range, a little over 500 range, again, 80 something points. The Red Wings, again, they look better. Looks like they fixed their goaltending issues. But at the end of the day too, are they going to take that much of a jump? The Sabres, I mean, no one would bet on the Sabres making the playoffs. And then you look at the top of the division. I mean, the Leafs were a 115-point team last year. Florida won the President's Trophy. Now they've lost. They have a different lineup, but at the same time, it's still a very nice lineup. And then you have Tampa. And with Boston, I just can't see the Bruins. And this is it's confirmation bias, I guess. But 82 games in a season, usually need in the mid 90s to make the playoffs. It's a little over 500. Like, people think you got to go on this like crazy tear. No, it's like, if you consistently go 3-2 every 5 games, well, then you're 6-4, you're 12-8, you're 24-16. Like, that's good enough to make the playoffs. And just looking at the Bruins top to bottom, Jim Montgomery, the new coach, some experience built with their goaltending duo. I see the Bruins in a wild card. I still see the Bruins making the playoffs. So I wish I had a more exciting answer. I think it's going to be a more competitive division. I think it's going to be a more competitive conference this year. Like last year, how everyone got 100 points. I don't see that again, because I think those teams that I mentioned, Detroit, Ottawa, Buffalo, will take points away from teams. And to turn that around, we'll get more points themselves. But in terms of the playoff picture, I see it about the same. How about you, Bruno?
So here's the way that I look at the Atlantic Division for this upcoming season. I don't think we're going to see the exact same thing we saw last season, where it was kind of a stars and scrubs division. Mm-hmm. You had the Panthers, Leafs, and Lightning absolutely dominate. Boston had a good year as well. And then the bottom half of the division was pretty terrible. Like, if you look at the standings from last season, all those top 4 teams finished with 107 points or more. And the bottom 4 teams all had 75 points or less. That's essentially a 32-point gap between 4th and 5th. I don't think we're going to see the same thing next season, but Lepore, I do think it's going to be more similar to this season than people realize. Mm-hmm. Like, I think people are expecting like a really competitive division because they think the Sens are going to compete for a playoff spot, and the Red Wings made all these additions in free agency, and they appear to be much better. And Moritz Seider, coming into his second season, Lucas Raymond, like, they got some exciting young players.
Yeah.
But earth to all the hockey fans out there, I don't think we're going to see a lot of change, especially at the top of this division. I still think, and I said it on the last show, I think the Leafs are the best team in the Atlantic Division.
Let's go.
I really do. Coming off a 115-point season where they had one of the worst goaltending tandems in the NHL from a statistical standpoint. They finished 27th in the league in 5-on-5 save percentage.
I feel like we've said that 1,000 times on the podcast.
It's a broken
5-on-5 save percentage.
And I have to keep repeating it because it's absolutely incredible. 115-point season, a franchise record-breaking season with the 27th ranked goaltending at 5-on-5.
Fucking brutal.
It's just truly incredible. So the Leafs, I think, are essentially in the same boat. If they can get average to a slightly above average goaltending from Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov, Lepore, they're essentially a lock for 105 to 110 points, in my opinion, with obviously upside for more. Yeah. You have the Lightning, who I think are going to take a little bit of a step back. They had to trade Ryan McDonough. They lose Andre Palat. They still have their entire core locked up. They're going to be good. And maybe we're finally going to start to see a little bit of fatigue. And, like you mentioned on the last show, that team doesn't give a shit about winning the division. Right. All they care about is getting back to another Stanley Cup. So right. I don't think they're going to be gunning for the President's Trophy or home ice advantage. It doesn't really matter to that team. Florida, I think they took a step back. they brought in Matthew Tkachuk, swapped him for Jonathan Huberdeau. That's essentially a wash. You can maybe you disagree with me and you think that Huberdeau was a better player. I mean, I don't know. I think it was kind of a wash, right? They lose Mackenzie Weegar. They don't look as good on the blue line. They still have goaltending issues. They don't appear to be, honestly, that great. Like, I still think they're going to make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to, be a President's Trophy winning team again. And then I don't think that Ottawa and Detroit are ready to take the leap. I don't. I still think Boston is better than both of those teams, especially bringing back Krejci and Bergeron. I think they're going to have a good season. The only thing with Boston, Marchand had surgery on both of his hips. McAvoy had surgery on his shoulder. Those guys aren't going to be back until December, January. So maybe that'll cause some problems for Boston. But Lepore, I think the Leafs are the class of the division. And the next three teams are going to be in some order: Tampa, Florida, Boston. I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's funny. So I often say on the show, I'll talk about things in a positive way. Like, I don't know, we'll be talking about a player and they have to prove themselves, or a team that has to prove themselves. And I'll say, show me. When you show me, I'll believe it. But until you, like the Leafs, win a round, show me, and then I'll believe it, right? With the Bruins, it's like the opposite. People keep thinking that they're going to take a step back, and this group is getting older. This group's not as motivated. It's changing. But show me. I'm not going to believe that the Bruins are not going to be a playoff team until they actually miss the playoffs. And I've got quite a few good friends who are big Bruins fans, and they've been kind of negative the last couple of years, kind of seeing the end of the line and a rebuild coming. But they're still a good team, man. They're still a good team. When you have guys who can score and you have guys who play the 200-foot game the way they do, heck. And guys who can move the puck, guys on the blue line who can move the puck, you always have a chance to win. Always have a chance to win. It's a tough barn to play in. I'm not going to count out the Bruins. I'm like you. I don't think those other teams can leap them. But I will ask you this one, Bruno. So the Sabres, the Sens, and the Red Wings. If you had to pick one of them, bet one of them to make the playoffs, who would you bet on?
It's time for a quick break for a word about MANSCAPED. If you haven't heard already, it's Smooth Sack Summer. This is the summer to keep your balls cool while still looking hot with MANSCAPED. The leader in below-the-belt grooming is making sure we have a ball this summer by giving our pants partners everything they need to stay fresh. Dive headfirst into Smooth Sack Summer by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping using our promo code GFP20. Lepore, you need these products this summer to stay fresh, man.
Manscaped is the best. Let me tell you, everyone, I was on a trip. My luggage got lost. And what's the first thing a guy's got to do? He's got to get some hands on some underwear, because there's one thing you can't wear multiple days in a row. It's underwear. So I was able to find some underwear, and it was some high-priced underwear. And I will say, without doubt, it was not as good and as comfortable as my Manscaped underwear. Not even close. So to get the absolute best products for men, go to manscaped.com, GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping. Can't go wrong.
Their boxers are absolutely incredible. They feel amazing. And I'm not just saying that because Manscaped sends us these products. Those boxers are next level. And then, of course, you got the Lawnmower 4.0. You know the deal. That's one of their best products. The body wash and shampoo. So many amazing products from Manscaped. So go to manscaped.com and use the promo code GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping. That is manscaped.com. 20% off and free shipping using the promo code GFP20. Man, that is such a tough question. Nice really one, close to me between Detroit and Ottawa. I'm going to go with Ottawa just simply because of the star power on the roster at this point. And, I talked about some of the young star players that Detroit has as well. I just don't think they're quite there yet. Lepore, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they finished with like identical records within, let's say, like 5 points of each other.
Detroit and Ottawa?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all, because I think that a lot of people are sort of overrating Ottawa and kind of underrating Detroit. I mean, you could disagree with me if you want, but I feel like people are just totally jumping the gun with the Senators team. You know how you said with the Bruins, it's like until I see them take a step back, I'm not going to believe it. It's the opposite with the Senators. Until they can prove to me that they're ready to actually compete for a playoff spot, I don't believe it because I still think they have issues on defense. We don't know what's happening with Drake Batherson, who's wrapped up in the whole Hockey Canada scandal, right?
Yeah, those numbers aren't looking good for the Sens because both him and Formenton are still on the list. And what is it now? There's like 12 names now that it could possibly be. And there's like 8 guys who still remain that haven't been cleared. And both Formenton and Batherson are on that list.
Yeah, that is going to be brutal for the Ottawa Senators if they lose, especially Drake Batherson. So we have to keep our eye on that situation. And, you know, even their goaltending, like I'm not totally sold on the Senators goaltending. I think it's solid, but I don't think it's fantastic by any means. But if I had to pick one, Lepore, I would pick the Ottawa Senators to sneak into a wild card spot between all those teams that you mentioned.
Yeah, I think I'd pick the Sens too. I mean, like you said, it's that show me thing, but at the same time, just purely and simply adding Claude Giroux and Alex DeBrincat, that's a lot, man. Like that's a lot of points. That's a lot of goals. That's a lot of scoring. And I always try to look at those metrics. I love those metrics that say, okay, a player's worth this many wins, this many points. I would think DeBrincat and Giroux are worth points. Like they're worth a good amount of points with what they're going to provide. And I do think this is going to be a come out party year for Stützle. The way
Agreed,
his
100%.
Yeah, the way his confidence seemed to be growing towards the end of the year. Like he had that crazy bout. Was that last year or 2 years ago? We went like 30 games without a goal or like just a few assists in like 20 something games. It was a really bad stint. I
believe it even may have been this past season before he went on that crazy tear towards the end of the year.
Yeah, it seemed like everything was going in for him by the end. And yeah, I think you are right. I think it was last year, but it's a contract year for him. And the Sens have been showing that they're willing to pay their stars. I mean, they gave Giroux his contract. Norris got paid. Tkachuk got paid. Stützle is kind of like their golden boy draft pick that I'm sure Pierre Dorion is very proud of as his shiny toy. So he won't hesitate to give him a big contract. I see Stützle having a big year. And I'm talking like if he puts up like, I might get ahead of myself. If he puts up like 40 or in and around 40, like I will not be shocked. Like I think he's that good and he's that explosive and a lot's lining up. And look at the guys around him. Like we've talked about it a million times. He's going to get opportunities. Their power play should be good. So he'll get his points there. Sens, man. The Sens to me may be the most interesting team to watch this year. Like that gap, how I always say when we do our show about the futures and the points. And the way I'll try to look at it will be, okay, let's say they put a team at 96 points. Well, I'll look at it and say, okay, well, what's more likely, 106 points or 86 points? And that's kind of how I'll make my bet. With the Sens, I mean, there's a spread. There is a spread because there's a lot of talent on this roster. They should be motivated to win games. The goaltending, I mean, there are some question marks there and as well as the D, but I don't know. Like at the same, like I could see, I don't want to say I could see things falling off the rails, but I guess they'll see maybe some immaturity in the group where they're just not quite ready, and nothing's wrong with that. I mean, it's sports. Like it's a long progressive thing, contrary to belief of many people on Twitter who think it takes a year to turn things around. But there's a swing with the Sens. I think they're going to be fun to watch. I'll be dialed into them for sure.
I think you nailed it with your point on Tim Stützle. I honestly think the entire season and the ceiling of this team kind of hinges on what Stützle becomes this season, because the way that I look at it, go back to Austin Matthews' rookie year. You know, obviously Mitch Marner and William Nylander were rookies in the same season, but the Leafs were coming off a horrible season, but they had, you know, they injected all of this young talent into the lineup at the exact same time, and they were all really good immediately and immediately made the playoffs. So if Stützle can take his game to the next level, and I agree with you, Lepore, some people might think we're crazy. I think as soon as next season, he has like a 40-goal point per game season in him. I think he's that good. So if he can take his game to that next level and be that like surefire elite number one centerman going into year 3, and now you've surrounded him with all of those great players in the top 6, You have Stützle and Josh Norris as your top two centers, DeBrincat, Giroux on the wings, Brady Tkachuk. If Stützle can elevate, man, that's going to unlock this team. I really think it will. As you know, I know there's a lot of question marks on the blue line. Their blue line is not very good by any means, and that could hold them back. But if Stützle can become an elite player as early as this season, that team can really, really do some damage. So I'll be very interested to see how that plays out, and specifically how well Stützle plays this year in year 3.
Yeah, the thing is too, is sometimes it's just so obvious that a team's going to make a certain deal with what they've added. And I mean, they only signed Giroux for the 2 years. I can't see them not making a move to better their D. Like there's been rumors about Chychrun and what they'd be willing to deal if it's one of their good prospects or their first rounder next year. But I mean, I think if you polled most Senators fans, they added DeBrincat, they added Giroux. This year, they're trying to be good. I don't think any of them would have a problem with trading a couple prospects or a first round pick or a first round pick to add something. Jake Sanderson's coming in too. Things have changed for that kid because he was going to face a lot of pressure. I mean, there was these comparisons to Cale Makar 2 years ago, and now that's just like craziness because Makar is one of the best defensemen we've ever seen. But there was pressure for this kid to come in and be impactful right away. If he can come in and just be a top 4 in his rookie season and they can add someone, changes a lot. So again, the Sens are going to be an absolute blast.
Yeah, with how aggressive they've been this offseason, it would honestly be stunning at this point if they don't at least try to bolster the defense core via trade. Like I would be stunned after how aggressive that team has been this offseason. So we'll definitely keep our eye on that. Lepore, before moving on to this next topic. So do you also have the Leafs as the best team in the Atlantic Division?
I think I do. And I know here come the comments, the Leafs podcast saying they're the best team, but 115 points last year. They had a slow start that people forget about. They couldn't make a save. Now people are already saying, well, why do you think your goaltending is going to be better? It's like, well, to that I'd say, well, it can't get much worse than it was last year. I still think they're going to make a move. I think, again, they're going to add at the deadline. And kind of like what you said about Tampa, and we touched on it, I don't know if it was last show or the show before, where this regular season really does matter for the Leafs in the way of just finishing as high as possible, getting home ice advantage, because, I mean, beating a dead horse here, but they got to win a round. They can't fall into that spot. Even the second spot, getting Tampa again, or whether it's like Florida again now, like, and again, I guess the prize will be like, I've mentioned before, I think Boston might get the wild card. So the prize could be Boston, but it sounds weird to say at this point, but I'd rather get Boston with home ice advantage than have to play the Tampa Bay Lightning, just based on recent results. So yeah, yes or no question, I would have the Leafs winning the division as far as the regular season goes anyway.
So there you have it. Both Lepore and I believe that the Leafs are the best team in the Atlantic Division heading into the season, and the betting markets, they agree with us. The Leafs right now currently listed as the favorite to win the Atlantic Division at plus 200. The Panthers are next at plus 220, followed by the Lightning at plus 225. The Bruins at plus 800. And then Lepore, the Red Wings, Senators, and Sabres, all 25-1 to win the Atlantic Division. So the betting markets, they see it exactly as we do.
Plus 200. I mean, that's a pretty shitty bet. I think like on almost any team, because anything can happen, right? Like injuries, even if they come second or something. I don't know. That's not a good bet.
That number is probably not worth betting. Maybe if you want to look at the Leafs, and I know we've talked about this on a previous show, to win the cup or to win the conference, you can get some better numbers. But even those numbers really aren't worth a bet at this point. But we both believe that the Leafs are still a very good team, guys. Leafs Nation, let's just all take a breath. This is still a good team. I know you want to complain about the goaltending and Kyle Dubas, and they haven't made a trade and they haven't made a big splash. Everyone just chill out. This team is still very good, okay?
Yeah.
All right, Lepore. Let's move on now. So also happening, over the past few days, the Calgary Flames announced that they signed Jonathan Huberdeau to an 8-year extension for $84 million, $10.5 million AAV. I am so happy for Calgary Flames fans, because when you lose Matthew Tkachuk, who forced his way out, when you lose Johnny Gaudreau for absolutely nothing, it looked like this team was on the verge of entering a rebuild. Brad Treliving swings for the fences, makes a
job.
fantastic trade with the Florida Panthers. Now, one of those two guys is already locked up for the future. I think at a good number that he deserves. Okay, I think Jonathan Huberdeau is a better offensive player than Johnny Gaudreau. You can disagree with me if you want. They're the exact same age. I found it so ridiculous that everyone was going to praise Calgary for bringing Gaudreau back at the exact same number, 8 years, $10.5 million a season. But now that they've signed Huberdeau, who's the same age, to the exact same contract, who has the fourth most points in the NHL over the last 4 seasons, people are like, I don't know about this. This contract isn't going to age well. Like, all those people, wake up and smell the coffee here.
Yeah, he's a star player.
He's a star player. You need this if you're the Calgary Flames after what happened. If you have the chance to lock up any of, let's say, the top 20 to 25 players in the NHL, which I think most people would probably agree Huberdeau falls in that range, you got to sign him to that deal, as much as it might hurt, when he's in his mid to late 30s.
How old is he? Is he 30?
He's born in 93, Jonathan Huberdeau. So I believe he's 28,
29.
Turning 29.
Okay. I mean, someone was going to give it to him, and I don't say that to justify the deal, but I mean, that's tough, man. And I saw the same reaction you did. People calling it a bad deal. It's like, how's that a bad deal? The guy was like breaking assist records, lighting it up. As you said, it wasn't a fluke. It's been the last 4 years. He's been incredible. He kind of had a slow start to his career based on his expectations, but the guy's a star player and he puts up points. I don't see what the problem is. But you touched on the thing with the Flames. I'm so happy for Flames fans, and I don't often say that about another fan base. Man, like what they went through sucks. Like 2 players looking them straight in the eye and saying, we don't want to be here anymore. And it wasn't a situation where, I'll say it, like the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs, guys not wanting to play for the blue and white. Like I totally believed it, whether it was ownership or the team sucked. This was a good team. A very good team. So for 2 players, man, to look management in the face and say, we don't want to stay, and especially with one of them being RFA, that sucked. And the whole spin of people or players not wanting to play in Canada, in comes Huberdeau. They sign him long term. So apparently some guys want to play in Canada. I mean, people will say that Huberdeau is Canadian. The 2 others are American. So we can analyze that how we want. But I know of a lot of Canadian players who don't want to play in Canada. But yeah, props to the Flames. High five to their fans, because like you said, this could have got really bad and really negative in a hurry, and they were able to salvage it. So Brad Treliving, man, like, good job. It's not too often that fans across Canada are kind of saying like, wow, that GM's doing a great job. He's doing a good job, man. Underrated, maybe. Brad Treliving, maybe he'll get that award nobody cares about next year, GM of the year.
Yeah, just an incredible job by Brad Treliving, because if you asked anyone who follows hockey a month ago, when Matthew Tkachuk was requesting a trade out of Calgary, if you asked anyone what they thought that trade would turn into, I don't think anyone in their right mind would have guessed that Calgary would have got Jonathan Huberdeau, Mackenzie Weegar, first round pick.
Oh,
like the whole package that they got was just unbelievable. And, people were like, you can't say that Calgary won the deal yet because they might lose Huberdeau and Weegar to free agency. My comeback to that was, even if they hadn't signed Huberdeau and he went the whole season and wanted to test free agency, the Flames could have dealt him at the deadline for a monster package.
But if they were winning, I mean, I'd expect them even with that addition to be winning. You think they were still looking at it that way?
And that's totally fair. They could have been winning, but let's say they were in a wild card spot or kind of right on that edge of making or missing the playoffs. Maybe they just said, you know what, even though we're a point out of a playoff spot, or maybe even though we're actually in a playoff spot, maybe the best thing to do here is to trade Jonathan Huberdeau for one of the biggest trade deadline packages we've ever seen in recent memory. I think that could have been on the table. So I always looked at it as sort of a win-win situation for Calgary, no matter how it played out, because I felt like they had a lot of options. And now that they've actually locked them up, it's party time in Calgary, honestly.
At the end of the day, so they took their shot. They got an elite player, at least for 1 year. I think most people would agree, and ask Flames fans and comment down below, that is more exciting than them signing like a good player who signed. No, they got an elite player for 1 year and you have a year to try to convince them. And if you can't, well, at least this year you're going for it. So I like the deal.
Exactly, right? They're trying to win. I mean, isn't that what we asked for?
Yeah, exactly.
From our favorite teams? Like, they're trying to win. Do
Yeah,
you really want to sit there through a rebuild?
It's kind of funny in hockey and like hockey fandom. I mean, you go on Twitter, you see these things of like, oh, this contract, that contract. Hockey's kind of funny with the hard cap because you make moves to try to win, but then you get criticized that like, oh, that deal's not going to age poorly. Yeah, but we're trying to win now. Like, we got them. We're trying to win. We're taking a shot. I mean, that's just, I guess, the nature of having a hard salary cap and hockey players getting shorter and shorter careers. But I just find it funny when people shit on deals like this where they got a star player, everyone. And and again, the best teams are the teams who have the best players. Period. So they got a really good player.
One of the crappiest things about the salary cap era is how much now we are just completely dissecting all these contracts.
Oh, like trades are the worst now. Trades suck now. Actually, this trade, someone commented they can't even remember a hockey trade since this one. Like, this was an actual hockey trade.
Like, it's just made hockey fans, and listen, a lot of hockey fans are smart and they've now become used to analyzing these contracts and making sure that it fits in within their team's salary cap and making sure that, the team is efficiently spending on the right players. But it's kind of gotten too far now where we're questioning Calgary for signing one of the elite offensive players in the league to an 8-year deal for $84 million. It's like, can we just take a step back and realize this is Jonathan Huberdeau? Calgary just lost two of its best players that, as you said, Lepore said, I don't want to be here anymore. And to replace them with Jonathan Huberdeau is a win. All right. Yeah. They had to pay him. He deserves the money as far as I'm concerned. I'm very happy for the Calgary Flames, and I'm excited to see just how good they can be this season. Do I think they're good enough to win the cup? No, not necessarily, but this is still a pretty good hockey team that should easily return to the playoffs, in my opinion.
Yeah. The thing is with the cap too, I was having a conversation with someone over dinner, of course, talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs and kind of like how we mentally approach certain situations. Ask any Leaf fan out there, 2 years from now, Austin Matthews and William Nylander walk in free agency. Both of them just gone off the books. See you later. I think the initial reaction of Leafs fans would be devastation to lose two players like that. I mean, a historical player in Austin Matthews and an excellent player in William Nylander. But then I said, well, they'd free up 18.5 million of cap space. So, and like, I'm not saying that they could easily replace those two guys, but you can fill cap space and it's not like they just lose them and they're now a team that is that much worse, like minus those guys, because they would be replaced with 2 or 3 or 4 guys that would make a more balanced lineup, or they can get an elite player and 3 balanced guys. So I think that kind of sucks in the cap era, like these discussions, because it's about cap space. Like, even people, like you mentioned how people dissect contracts. To me, it's dissecting trades. Like, oh, this team got hosed, whatever. They got cap space. If you get cap space, that's a win because that allows you to make a move. It's an asset, right? It's weird, man. And I'm sure different teams run their organizations differently, but at the same time, I think they're kind of getting it now. Like, you're seeing more and more moves where it's just about freeing up cap space and leaving yourself some flexibility, because it can be shown to be very powerful as the season goes on.
You know what, Lepore? Screw the salary cap. Get rid of it.
Fuck.
I don't care about the parity. I want to see the Leafs and the Rangers and all the richest teams in the Habs go out and sign whoever the hell you want. Give these players what they deserve. Give them their market value. Load up. Create these super teams. I honestly think that would make the NHL more exciting, but that's maybe a conversation for a different day.
You know, it's funny. I don't know how it was a couple years back. Someone compared the 4 majors, and it was something like 10, 20, 30 year span. I think it was like a 20 or 30 year span. And they listed all the champions. And the sport that had the most champions was baseball. No cap. Well, now they have the luxury tax, but yeah, like no hard cap. At the end of the day, like, it doesn't really create parity. And then now, I mean, with the NHL, LTIR, like, teams go on cap friendly. Teams aren't all spending the same amount of money, freeing up and this and that. And finding ways to maneuver around, and it's brutal, man. It's brutal. And people, I'm sure, are already saying, "Oh, big surprise, Leafs fans don't want a cap." Well, yeah, Leafs fans don't want a cap. It's the first time in the history of our organization that things are actually run properly. And I think I can say, and most people would agree with me, we have smart people at the top, and there's a cap. Like there was no cap when we had dummies running the show, like signing horrible trades, giving guys too much money and all this shit, going after the wrong guys. No, now they would do it right, and they're being blocked with a cap. Just fucking brutal. I'm bitter.
It's brutal. Get rid of the damn salary cap. I can go on about that for hours, but maybe we'll save that for another episode and dedicate the entire 45 to an hour talking about how the NHL needs to get rid of the salary cap. But Lepore, we talked about the Jonathan Huberdeau contract. I want to mention a couple recent articles in The Athletic by Dom Luszczyszyn,
who everybody loves. Everybody loves Dom Luszczyszyn.
Oh, everyone loves Dom Luszczyszyn on Twitter. You know what? Shout out to Dom Luszczyszyn. We really like you here on the GFP podcast because we think you're a smart guy. We don't think that you just stare at spreadsheets all day. We know you really like hockey, and you don't only look at stats. You're an eye test guy. You're a stats guy. You're a smart hockey guy. All right. There's a lot of people on Twitter who don't view him in the same light because he posts something and they just immediately get mad at it because they don't agree with numbers that are black and white.
Yeah.
Numbers don't lie, people.
Yeah.
They just don't. All right. So anyway, he came out with a couple articles ranking the 10 best contracts in the NHL and the 10 worst contracts in the NHL.
Ooh.
So starting Lepore with the 10 best contracts, okay?
Okay. Let's see if can I try to guess them?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
That's kind of fun. Well, McKinnon's got to be there. That's one.
Nathan McKinnon.
Yeah, he's got to be there.
As I scan through the top 10 contracts in the NHL, according to Dom Luszczyszyn, Nathan McKinnon, Lepore, is not on the list.
What? That seems almost like impossible.
He is not on the list. There is
I'm 0 for 1. I'm done. Sudden death overtime. I'm out. I'm like, oh, the slam dunk. Yeah, wrong. Let's see if I can go. Is there Pasternak? Pasternak.
He's not on the list either, Lepore.
Okay, I'm gonna give up. You just say the list.
All right, the 10 best contracts. You were close. There's another Colorado Avalanche on this list, and he tops the list. Number 1, the best contract in the NHL, according to Dom Luszczyszyn, is Cale Makar.
Wait, sorry. Does he do it based on? I'm gonna kind of defend myself here. I wonder if he does it based on the total. How do I put this? Like the total value of that player based on what he's making, or like the gap of like what he should be making. You know what I'm trying to say? And I guess contract wise, he's probably doing it like a term thing too. Like saying like Cale Makar is signed now, and at that number, like that's ridiculously amazing. Whereas say a player on a shorter deal who's on, who's coming up and who's a star, performing way better than he's paid may not show as well. Maybe, I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah, you're essentially on the right page there. It's basically looking at like contract efficiency, how much value do they add?
Right.
In terms of what they're getting paid, how many years, all that stuff, right? And he has Cale Makar at number 1 because Cale Makar should probably be making like $16 million a year
fucking
if
alien.
This wasn't a cap league.
Yeah.
And he was arguably, okay, the best player really in the league last year. And I know Connor McDavid was outrageous, but I mean, Cale Makar, based on what he did, winning the Norris,
you're forgetting about someone, Anthony Bruno,
winning the Stanley Cup.
You're forgetting about someone, Anthony Bruno. We're a Leafs podcast.
Oh, of course, I got to bring up number 34, Austin Matthews. Don't want to forget about him. But Cale Makar was incredible this season, so he's number 1. Number 2 on the list is another defenseman, Charlie McAvoy of the Boston Bruins.
Okay.
Connor McDavid at 3, Brad Marchand at 4, Johnny Gaudreau at 5, Roman Josi at 6, Adam Fox at 7. So a lot of D-men. Austin Matthews, number 8.
Let's go.
On this list. And rounding out the top 10, Miro Heiskanen and Kirill Kaprizov.
Kaprizov, really? Okay. I'm surprised at that one. Not that I think it's a bad contract, but just like total metrics.
So your thoughts on Matthews being listed 8th on this list.
I'm not surprised. And that's simply because it seems like whenever they do these lists, these guys see it as a top heavy league where the stars really carry the teams. And in terms of value, it's that whole thing of like, well, the star player, you can't just replace the guy who is like lesser, like a lesser piece in the lineup is easier to replace. And you can get it's easy to get value lower. If a guy's $4 million, I'll put it this way. Austin Matthews at 11.65 million. You're not going to get, let's say you drop to like 7 or 8 million. Like the gap is huge. Like that's a huge gap in player. Whereas once you get lower, say like 3 million to 4 million, well, the $3 million player might be worth more than the $4 or $5 million player. And that's percent. I'm doing it like based on percentage, right? Like that's still, if you're going like 50%, 40% increases even. So I'm not surprised that Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid for that matter, I'm pretty sure on the list last year, he may have had McDavid as the best contract in the league.
Oh yeah, especially coming off that season where he had 104 points in 56 games. Just the surplus value added, as Dom likes to refer to it, was just through the roof. Because if you actually look at what McDavid was worth last season on the open market, and it hasn't really changed, after this past season, he's almost worth like double his current contract.
Okay.
Same with Austin Matthews and these other top guys. I'm not surprised where Matthews is either. Like when you're making that much money, it's not just good enough to have like a point per game season or to score like, 40 goals. If you're Austin Matthews, like you really have to bring it. You have to elevate your game that much more to be considered to actually be of value. And not saying that Matthews isn't valuable if he has like an 80-point season with 40 goals, but when he scores 55 to 60 and gets to 100 points, that just takes him to the next level when you're looking at like the value of these contracts, right? So yeah, I mean, Matthews is at 8, to no surprise. I mean, it's hard to argue that he isn't a top 10 contract in the league. You want to look at some of the worst contracts, Lepore?
Well, it's way more fun.
It's a lot of fun. So
that's a lot of fun.
The worst contracts in the NHL. Do you want to guess who the worst contract is, according to Dom?
Okay, let's see. I'll give it another shot. Maybe I'll get embarrassed again. Quickest ones that come to mind, Erik Karlsson. He's got to be there.
Yeah, he's on the list.
Okay, now we're rolling. Karlsson. I'm thinking defenseman. I'm thinking he's going to have defenseman. Oilers fans, Darnell Nurse.
You nailed it. He's on this list as well. One of the 10 worst contracts in hockey.
What number is he at?
He's number 5 on the list.
Okay. Based on the reaction of when the deal was on, I'm going to say Seth Jones.
He's also on the list. 3 for 3. You want to
really
stop
good at the
there
bad
before
ones.
You ruin your perfect streak?
Yeah. Who else has a really bad contract in terms of performance? I guess he didn't do goalies, right?
No, there's no goalies on this list. I
don't
even think he included goalies.
I'm trying to think of like forwards. Like who? Are Sagan and Ben there?
One of them is. Tyler Sagan is on the list. And Lepore, I like that you mentioned that because he has Sagan listed as the worst contract in the NHL.
There you go.
And I'll just start going through the list here. So like you said,
good.
Seth Jones also on the list. He's number 2. Jeff Skinner, number 3.
Oh, of course. Of course, Skinner. Yeah, of course.
Mark-Edward Vlasic, who I'm just realizing is still in the NHL.
Yeah. Oh my God.
He was, a lock for Team Canada for a bunch of years. And then with the Sharks kind of fading away, he also faded away into oblivion.
Who did the Sharks have? Like they had Karlsson, Vlasic, Burns, and I'm forgetting one, aren't I?
No, I don't think you're forgetting another like top defenseman, but then you add in like Thornton, Marlowe, Pavelski, Logan Couture, Evander Kane. Like he had so many good players, man.
Yeah, but like there was like 20 million on those 3 guys, and like they weren't very good. Like,
yeah, that team just fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
Then we have
I'm
Darnell.
more referring to the excitement. The excitement when like Karlsson got there, everyone was all excited about what they would be.
Yeah, but then we have Darnell Nurse at number 5. Coming in at number 6, Colton Parayko. Carlson, number 7.
Parayko's
Another
down.
defenseman, Zach Werenski.
See, that's shocking.
Surprisingly,
Because
number
he's got
8.
a good rep. And maybe that's playing in Columbus, like a place like Columbus.
Yeah, and because he signed a pretty big deal, $9.6 million a year for 6 years. So he's really got to bring it to return value on that. Nick Suzuki, Habs fans, coming in as the 9th worst contract in the NHL, according to Dom. And then rounding out the list, someone who we ripped on the last show and people thought we were insane. Well, I mean, not everyone thought we were insane, but a lot of Red Wings fans thought we were nuts. Ben Sherratt, the 10th worst contract in the NHL.
See that one. I see the 10th worst, but like a lot of these guys are making big money and they don't deserve it. Like you mentioned, Werenski, like Sagan's got a big contract, like Carlson's got a big number. All these guys, Darnell Nurse, Seth Jones, big numbers. Werenski's making what, like 3.5?
No, Lepore, Werenski's making 9.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Sherratt. I'm sorry, Sherratt.
Oh, Sherratt. Yeah, he's making 4.8.
Okay, so
over
pushing
the next
5.
4 years.
But I'm just saying, like, again, it's based on value.
Mm-hmm.
It's only 4.8, but it's still that bad. Whereas you can see like the guy making 10 million, okay, deserves 6. So it's like a 50% drop back for a guy to be only making 4.8 making 4.8 million and to be on that list. That's impressive by Ben Sherratt. Way to go.
Yeah, that's looking like a brutal contract.
It hasn't even started yet.
You should go check out our video talking about Ben Sherratt being the worst free agent signing in the NHL. I'm sure you'll really enjoy that. Unless you're a Red Wings fan, and then you're probably going to want to yell at us and do bad things to us. But the one guy I want to talk about on this list specifically is Nick Suzuki.
Oh.
Because Habs fans love this guy. You know, a lot of people calling him the next Patrice Bergeron, and he's so elite. And they made it to the Cup final 2 years ago, and he's going to take this huge leap. Lepore, last season, Nick Suzuki, in all 82 games, he played the full season. Good for him. 21 goals, 61 points. And I get that team was horrendous, but he has yet to take that leap in terms of a production standpoint, like becoming close to a point per game player, close to a 30-goal scorer. We just have not seen it yet. And the Habs locked him up to a pretty big contract.
It starts now, right? Because he started early last year, but yeah.
$7.9 million over 8 years. So I believe Josh Norris got essentially the exact same contract from the Ottawa Senators. And Josh Norris has proven that he can produce at a point per game. As I look up Norris's numbers from last season, he had 55 points in 66 games, but also scored 35 goals. Mm-hmm. So he had a better season than Nick Suzuki. All right. So what are your thoughts on Suzuki being on this list?
I don't know. I like the player. I mean, I'm just using my eyes here. Funny how weird that is now in today's sports world. Like, I'm just watching and giving an opinion rather than looking at data. But I don't know. Like, that's a tough one because you said Montreal was so bad. And I know Dom is sometimes quick to say when guys don't show well in his metrics that it may be because like the team is dragging him down. But $8 million, I think it's going to be okay for Montreal. Like, I don't want to sit here and be like, oh my God, he's going to be a 40 goal, 80 point guy, knock it out of the park, and it's a slam dunk. But I don't think it's going to be a devastating contract. At the end of the day, like, he's in his third year, he was in the 20s for goals, 60 points. Thing is too, someone pointed out that the cap's going up in 2 years, right? Perfect timing for Austin Matthews, #Leafs. So a lot of these guys that are signing long-term deals now, if it's going up in 2 years, I'd like to think that kind of like the cap trajectory should continue at a pace where it's going up $1 million or $2 million every year. So some of these contracts that are getting signed like that one may end up being really good contracts.
That's a really good point.
It's all about percentage wise, right? Like, people always look at the number of a player makes and say, oh, this guy only makes this. It's like, yeah, well, but that guy signed 2 years ago. So then you break it down. It's like, okay, he signed for 12.5% of the cap at the time. So like, here's Suzuki at $8 million. He's still young. In 5 years, if he's a very good player, even an elite player, that contract could look pretty fucking nice. I mean, again, I think everyone knew it was like a semi gamble, but he's got star power. And like, I think Montreal fans won't regret that one in the future.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to look that bad down the road. If you're the Montreal Canadiens coming off that playoff run they had, where Suzuki was actually really good in the playoffs, 16 points in 22 games, had some really big moments. You're betting on his future. And he's still only 22 years old. So this contract, like you said, Lepore, could look really good down the line. But right now, is he worth $8 million a year? No, based on his production, he definitely isn't. But he could very well become that as soon as next season. And then he'll be off this list, and Habs fans won't be mad at Dom Luszczyszyn, and they won't be mad at us, and specifically me.
But even then, even if it does take him, say, a year or 2 or 3 to fully get his mojo going and come into that contract, does anyone see Montreal being like uber competitive? Funny, we didn't even talk about them earlier. I don't think we brought up the Montreal Canadiens while talking about the Atlantic Division. So at least for the next 2 years, I don't think people see Montreal being uber competitive. So who cares if he takes up cap space and you locked him in at that price, if he's going to develop into a good player. And the time when you're getting value out of that deal is a time where you're trying to win games.
Yeah, I think long-term, this contract is going to look okay. The thing for the Montreal Canadiens is, can they continue to surround Suzuki and Cole Caulfield with the right talent? And they just picked Juraj Slafkovsky, number 1, who looks like he could be a very impactful power forward in the league, maybe a guy who can score 30 to 40 goals soon. I'm not saying he's going to do that in his rookie season, but looks like a very promising player. So we'll give the Habs a break. They're still in their rebuild. They got a lot of young players. We don't hate you, Montreal Canadiens fans. Sometimes you really piss me off, but for the most part, I do love your passion.
Once in a while. But I'll say this, Bruno, we'll stay on the Atlantic Division. This is a fun one. And this is a good comment down below, everyone. Who will score more goals this season? Tim Stützle or Cole Caulfield?
Great question. Ooh, I'm going to go, you know what?
And both in contract years, right?
I'm going to go with Caulfield.
Oh, nice.
Just because I think he's more of a pure scorer.
Okay.
I think Stützle will probably end up with more points.
You're copying out, Bruno.
But I think they can both score 30 plus this year. But I think Caulfield has like more elite goal scoring upside. Like I think Caulfield can score. I'm more confident in Caulfield hitting 35 to 40, as opposed to Stützle hitting that same benchmark.
Yeah, I think you convinced me, because I was like, okay, kind of going either way. But then if I look at it, it's like, okay, I think I'd be surprised if Caulfield didn't score 30. To be honest. But if Stützle got like 28 and like 45, 50 assists, like I wouldn't be surprised either. But it'd be the goals. Like I'd say, like I'll be shocked if Cole Caulfield doesn't score 30 goals. So yeah, you convinced me.
Yeah, especially with how great he was when St. Louis took over. Like Caulfield, I believe, had like 2 goals in his first 30 games.
Yeah, he got robbed.
With 23 on the season in 67 games.
Yeah, he got robbed of the Calder, right?
Yeah,
If St. Louis
was there from day one, I think he probably runs away with the Calder, because he easily hits 30 goals. And, sure, the Habs were still terrible, but at least he would have had the numbers.
Yeah, like his pace at the end was hilarious. I'd like to look up what his shooting percentage was during that phase, like if it makes sense, or everything was just going in for him, which is probably likely the case when you're scoring that many goals in that many games. But no, I expect Caulfield to have a big year goal wise. Again, contract year. So here he comes, everyone.
Yeah, should be a very, very exciting year in the Atlantic Division. A lot of good teams, a lot of exciting young players. Lepore, is there anything else you want to get off your chest before we wrap up this podcast?
He got me excited, Bruno, talking about the Atlantic, where teams are going to finish, who's going to make the playoffs, how many goals guys are going to get, comparing players, revving up for a good season in the Atlantic, man. I'm jacked.
Same here. I am so excited for this season to start, and we're getting very close, everybody. We are now into the second week of August. Training camp is going to start soon. We're really getting close to this year. So we are so excited for the start of the season. And I'm still thinking that a Leaf trade is coming down the pipeline. I don't know when it's going to happen, Lepore, but I just have this spidey sense that something is brewing with the Leafs.
Okay. Will that be a trend on the podcast? Bruno's spidey sense?
Yeah, my spidey senses they're pretty high right now. Not super high, but I'm feeling it right now when it comes to the Leafs. But
favorite all-time superhero, Bruno, go.
Oh man, that's a tough one. Let's go with the Hulk.
The Hulk, good answer. Good answer.
With the Hulk.
Fucking pay yourself green, take your shirt off. I'd mistake you for the Hulk. You're such a beast. But
let's go, baby.
I'm a Spider-Man guy. I grew up on that cartoon in kindergarten. I think it was like from the 60s, that cartoon they used to still show, where like everything would be still, but just his jaw would be moving up and down as he was talking. It's like amazing to watch. Go on YouTube, everyone. Even the intro to that cartoon with the song, incredible, man. Incredible.
Lepore, I'm surprised you didn't say Superman, since you are essentially the real life Clark Kent.
Clark Kent, yeah. If I get that with the glasses, but Superman, it's kind of funny. What tangent we're going on now? But like objectively, Superman is the best superhero in terms of his abilities.
100%.
But I feel like when you ask people what I asked you, very few people say Superman. I know Jerry Seinfeld would say Superman, but I just feel everyone's like Spider-Man, or like they try to be cool and say like
Superman's the easy answer. Like I was going to say Superman, but I'm like, I can't say Superman. Like he's easily the best superhero. I had to be a little bit different,
Yeah. Is Batman a superhero?
Batman's a superhero.
Okay, I like it.
He's definitely a superhero.
That can cause some debate in our comment section.
I just don't think he brings enough to the table, Lepore. Like he's a great superhero. I need a little bit more from Batman. Put him like on the elite in that elite tier of superhero.
We'll get Dom to write an article based on value on which superhero provides the most.
Oh my god. All right, Lepore. I think that does it for this episode.
Yeah, time to wrap up.
Of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, episode 70. Oh my god, we made it to 70.
Incredible.
I'm very proud of us, Lepore. So shout out to us for getting to episode 70. I say this at the end of every episode. If you enjoyed listening, please give us a 5-star rating and review on both Apple and Spotify. That would do us wonders. Something else that would do us wonders, if you're watching us on YouTube and you really enjoyed this show, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is dropping some new content. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno, and we will see you guys in the next one.
Thanks so much, everyone.